Okay, so I'm just gonna go over each concept, do a couple problems with you. You have to complete the review before the test opens up. In class, normally I just do a quick stamp check that you have it done. There are like a mixture of questions like this on ALEKS for you to do that I'm gonna check your mastery with. So some of these problems might get repeated, and so you can just copy and answer it from your review packet. But some of you might get a new problem, but it's gonna be the same steps to solve it. So the first set of fractions, adding, subtracting, I'm going to give you some that have the same bottom numbers, the same denominator. So you just basically do the operation to the top number. So they're just showing you that 5 minus 2 is 3 7ths. So since these denominators are the same, that number is going to stay at the bottom. Now we're just adding the top. So this would be 9 11ths. Okay, so if the denominator is the same, you just add or subtract the numerators. What's on the top. Now, if they're not the same, then that's when you have to use the bow tie method. Bow tie method states that you're going to first multiply the numbers on the bottom. So this arrow is just saying I'm multiplying straight across, doing 6 times 8, and that gave me the 48. Then I have a plus sign between my operations. So I'm now going to go up. This blue is what I do next, which is 8 times 5, which is the 40. And then the 6 times 3, which is 18. So now we have the bottom. So we're just going to simplify the top. This becomes 58 over 48. And this can be reduced. Okay, I'm going to put a star next to that. So we're asking what 48 and 58 have in common. To simplify them, I can reduce or divide by what number right off the bat? Because they're both even. Yeah, right off the bat you can do 2 if you don't see the most common factor. So half of 58 is going to give you what? Half of 58, guys.
29.
Huh?
29.
29. Half of 48. 24. Oops, sorry. And then this is our final answer. I cannot reduce that any further. So even with subtraction, you first multiply across to the bottom. So that gives the bottom is 40. Then you multiply up. 4 times 9 gives you 36. Then I'm going to subtract that, going straight up again. 10 times 3 is 30. And now I'm just going to do the operation on the top because the 40 is our denominator. 36 minus 30 leaves you with just 6 over 40. And again, this can be reduced. Again, if you divide it by 2, it reduces to 3 over 20. So make sure you reduce. It will give you partial credit on ALEKS. And I think you still have like 2 attempts per question. But to get full credit, you do have to reduce. Simplify. It will say simplify every time. Now, if you have a sign, a -4/9, what I would suggest is put the negative to either the numerator or to the denominator, not to both, because that would make it positive. So just put the sign to one of the terms. And then again, we don't have the same bottom number, so you multiply straight across on the bottom. This gives me 27 on the bottom. Then I multiply up. 3 times the -4 gives that a -12. And then I multiply up again. 9 times 2 gives me 18. So I have a -12 plus 18. The difference between that, because we have 2 different signs, sorry, that should have been black, is 6 over 27. Again, this can be reduced. They have 3 in common, so if you divide the top and the bottom by 3, we get 2 over 9. And that's our final answer. So just make sure you reduce. Now when it comes to multiplying, all you have to do is just top times top, bottom times bottom. I know this is times a -3, so I would convert this first into a fraction, so put it over 1. Then basically I'm doing this -5 times that -3 on top. That'll make that a +15. And then I'm doing 7 times 1, which would give me 7. You can keep them improper. It just has to be simplified improper fraction. So I know it's showing parentheses, but this is the same thing as if you had multiplication here. So we're just going to multiply straight across. 4 times a -1 gives me -4. And 8 times 5 gives me 40. And then we're just reducing. So I can divide by 4, which they have in common. So -1/10. Now dividing is a little different. So I have this little note or this little rhyme to help you recognize what to do for dividing. When dividing fractions, don't ask why. Just flip the second fraction and multiply. So the second fraction here is this -24 over 7. We're going to flip that, meaning what's on top goes on the bottom, bottom goes on top. So really what my problem now becomes, I'm going to write it underneath here, is 8/5. Remember, just flip the second fraction and multiply. So now we're going to multiply by -25 over 24. Okay. Now, to simplify the operation, you can cross reduce. All right. When I mean by cross reduce, I'm looking across and see if they have anything in common. Like, can 8 go into 24? Yeah. Okay. 8 can go into 24 3 times. 8 divided by 8 is 1. That's why I'm making that a 1. And now changing this 24 to a 3. I can cross reduce here. 5 can go into 25 5 times, so make that a -5. Now I'm just multiplying straight across. Okay, because we're multiplying here, you're just going to go straight across. So this is basically saying 1 times a -5 over 1 times 3. And that can be reduced to -5/3. So you can reduce before you multiply, or you can just reduce at the end if they have common factors. Okay. All right, so that first section is fractions. The second section is order of operations. Okay, PEMDAS. You just have to remember you're first going to do, this is always first, which is your parentheses or any type of grouping. Okay. Then we have E is for your exponents. Okay. Anything that has a power. Then we have these two go together. Multiplying, dividing. You just have to do it in order from left to right. And then last is addition and subtraction. And again, it has to be in order from left to right. So we always look for some type of parentheses. If not, then we look for an exponent, and then we kind of do one at a time. So if I evaluate this first one, there's no exponent, there's no parentheses, there's no exponent. So then I look, do I see multiplication from left to right? Reading it from left to right, right there, there's my multiplication. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this as 2 times 8 is 16, then minus 7 plus 20 divided by 5. And then there's the next set of operations, which is division. So we get 16 minus 7 plus 4. Make sure you do this from left to right. Most people are getting this wrong because they want to kind of start with the bottom. Do your 16 minus 7 first. That gives you 9, then plus 4, which our final answer would be 13. Okay. So make sure you left to right is probably real key for this. Try this one. See if you recognize that there's this division you have to do first, and then there's this multiplication also. You got to do the division first. Okay. Now, this same order of operation is going to go with evaluating expressions. So basically, you're going to go from using your order of operations to evaluating or grouping and to substituting. So this first step, this is a grouping symbol. So I need to do this grouping inside first. And when I do that and rewrite that, I'll have 7 with my grouping symbol of 52 minus 5 to the second power. So now I'm going to do the exponent. I'm just going to abbreviate that exp. 5 squared means you have 2 factors of 5, which is 5 times 5. So now what I have is 7 outside the brackets, 52 minus 25 inside the bracket. So now, because this is like a grouping symbol, this is what needs to happen next. We have to do the 52 minus 25. So this gets simplified as 7 with that bracket, 27 inside. And now with this is the same thing as saying 7 times 27. Which is what, 189? Now, if you have a fraction bar here, keep the fraction bar when you're doing your order of operations. Do your top. On the top, I would do multiplication first, which would change this to 2 plus 30, and then do the bottom. On the bottom, I would do my parentheses first, which would change that 4 squared. And on the top, this gets simplified as 32. On the bottom, this 4 squared gets simplified as just 16. This can be reduced. 16 goes into 32 2 times, so our final answer is 2. So when they ask you to evaluate, I'm going to move this here if it lets me out. Basically, when they're asking you to evaluate, you need to first, undo that. First, use these parentheses. So A equals 4. So wherever A is, I'm going to do parentheses 4. And B equals 6. So I'm color coding just so you can see my substitution. So where B is, this becomes parentheses 6, then plus 8, and then A is parentheses 4. This will, once you do this, this will make, then you have to just follow order of operations. So just make sure you substitute correctly. So this gets simplified as 6 plus 32, which comes out to be 38. Okay. Same here, we're gonna substitute m for 9. M equals 9. So here's my m. It'll be 9 parentheses squared minus 16. 9 squared is 81. Then I'm just doing minus 16. And now it's just subtraction. So that's going to leave you with 75. No, 65, sorry. Okay. And then our last section, the last section is just combining like terms. So just pay attention to the variables that they're the same. And if they're the same, then you're really just combining the coefficient. And also pay attention to the sign in front. So this is like, really just like saying a negative 9 minus 7. So that comes out to be a negative 16. So this final answer would be a negative 16x. Okay. If I have 5 minus 10, because these a's are the same, that comes out to be negative 5. So this is a negative 5a. Now, if you have to use the distributive property, let me scroll up. This is right here. I kind of just drew these arrows to model what happens, you know, hippity hoppity, distributive property, multiply the outside number to everything inside of a grouping. So 1/5 times 10x, and then 1/5 times 4. A fifth of 10 is just going to get simplified to 2x. And a fifth of 4, the 4 is like 4 over 1. Remember, fractions, you just multiply straight across on the top and the bottom. So this would be 4/5. And that is our final answer. So this is saying 20 times a fourth of x plus, and then 20 times 2/5. 20 divided by 4 is 5, so that's why this can be simplified by 5x. I'm going to think this as 20 over 1. I can actually cross reduce, because I know 5 goes into 24 times. And so now I just have 4 times 2, which is 8, and 8 over 1 is just 8. So this is our simplified answer. So there's not going to be any solving here, it's just simplifying. If you have more than one term or variable, do the distributing first. Now, notice there's a minus sign here. So think this is a negative 2 times a negative 6x. So you keep the minus 4w. This now becomes plus 12x. And then a negative 2 times a positive 6w. That's still going to make it a negative 12w. And then minus 6x. Now, I'm just going to underline the like terms. I have a minus 4w and minus 12w. That becomes a negative 16w. And then I have a positive 12x, so that plus sign, and a minus 6x, so that becomes plus 6x. And that's our final answer. So I think the most error or common error is forgetting this sign here when you do this. Okay. Keep your 5y, then this becomes negative 20z. A negative times a negative makes that positive 24y. And then minus the 5z. And then you're just combining like terms. Okay. So those pretty much cover all the sections for the test. So I just want you to do your set of review questions on Alex, because it's just going to regenerate some questions for you to do. If it requires you to do scratch work, you can do it on the actual review packet. I know some of them you can do mentally because it's just adding and subtracting. I'll come by and stamp this just to check you off for your review, and then the test will open up tomorrow. Okay. When you get to your test, I just ask, it will be password protected, and then I just asked for everyone to complete an attempt in class, and then you can have additional attempts if you need to improve your grade. Does anyone have any questions? All right, so I'm gonna let you get started on the review.